Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast, where smart strength training meets real life. We're Dr. Matt and Nicole Klingler, founders of Village Fitness and Physical Therapy. Here, you'll learn what really works in the gym, at home, and for life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Strength for Life podcast. We're your host. I'm Nicole Klingler.
And I'm Dr. Matt Klingler.
Today, Matt and I are going to be tackling a question that affects every single person as they age. How do you stay strong, capable, and independent for life? And we believe the answer lies in one deceptively simple tool, the barbell. But before we get into why it's so effective, we're going to take you on a quick journey back through centuries of history of strength training to understand how the steel implement became the cornerstone of real lasting strength, and how somewhere along the way, we lost our way.
Now, back in the day when a guy or gal walked in the gym, you didn't see rows of machines or TV screens. What you saw was really quite simple. Steel bars, iron plates, squat racks. You showed up to squat, to deadlift, to press on your feet with gravity and under load. That was the work. And then in the 1860s, we saw the invention of the first barbells. They were long bars with these substantial masses at each end that were typically utilized as props for like circus acts and things. And then Calvert founded the first Milo barbell in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1902, and he immediately obtained this patent for this thing that was a weight adjustable bar, and it fairly closely resembles the barbells that we see in gyms today.
But somewhere along the line, the fitness industry took a detour, and it started with one man, Arthur Jones. In the 1970s, he introduced the world to Nautilus machines, these glossy, beautiful electric blue equipment that promised the perfect workout. And his pitch was this: it was compelling, it was short, and intense workouts were done to failure on these machines with no needs for spotters or complicated lifts.
And Americans ate it up. We do love our convenience. Keep in mind, this was the age of microwaves and TV dinners, where people absolutely were looking for the most convenient solution possible. And Nautilus offered just that. Gyms loved it too. They could train anyone to coach, in quotes, on these machines in under an hour. No barbells, no technique, no certifications, no intimidation. It became a business model. Sales offices in front, chrome machines in the back. In fact, Nicole and I actually worked in a gym with an entire room for Nautilus machines shortly after we graduated college up in Davis. And you saw somebody go into that room at the beginning of a year. By the end of the year, they looked no better, maybe even a little bit worse. And they crushed themselves in there. Like, they probably worked pretty hard, but they just didn't get the results that they were looking for.
And they were in there for a long time, too. Like, they would go in there, and like an hour and a half later, they would come out, and we're like, what are people doing in there? And
I did wonder that. I did wonder what they were doing in there.
And there was also a lot of trainers that would just go in there, and really, they were just standing there talking to their clients while their clients sat on these machines, and really, frankly, didn't get any stronger.
Yeah. Were you judging those trainers?
Maybe just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
However, what we gained in convenience through these Nautilus machines, we lost really in everything else. And why? Because these machines really just isolate specific muscle groups, and they force you to move in artificial paths, and they also remove the need for balance and coordination. They made training feel hard without producing meaningful adaptations.
Now, if we fast forward to today, I do think the tide is really shifting. People are starting to wake up to the fact that convenience doesn't necessarily equal results. And we've spent decades sitting on machines and not getting stronger. And people today they're tired of gimmicks, and they're craving something that actually works. And that's where the barbell comes back in. It's simple, yes, but it's also unmatched in terms of what it delivers.
I think there's also been a cultural shift. People are starting to value strength, not just for aesthetics, but what it means in real life. So can I lift my own case of water at Costco? Can I get up and down off the floor without help and with ease? Can I stay independent as I age? And the barbell gives you that kind of strength. It's functional, it's empowering, and honestly, it just feels good to do something hard and know that your body is getting stronger.
Can the barbell help you plug your own phone in at night and get your own water so I don't have to?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so barbell's not going to help with that. Anyways, as part of this resurgence with the barbell, people are starting to realize that the barbell is not just for bodybuilders or power lifters anymore. Barbell training is quite adaptable. In fact, it's teachable to anyone. And with proper coaching, it's actually a lot safer than most of the stuff that we see people out there doing. It respects your biology, your anatomy, and your time.
And we've watched it happen over and over again at Village, where people come in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they step under a barbell for the first time, and they discover that, wow, I can actually get stronger. I can actually do this. And it's not just a trend, it's a return to real strength. So now that we've traced where barbells came from and how we lost our way for a while, let's talk about why this tool is essential, especially as we get older.
So we all lose muscle as we age, especially if we're not doing the right things. As early as our 30s, the decline begins. We lose like 3 to 5% of our muscle mass per decade. And that loss actually starts to accelerate the older we get. By the time we get to be about 80 years old, the average American has lost 40% of their muscle mass. And strength declines even faster. We lose 1 to 3% of our strength per year, which is rapid and really scary to think of ourselves just eroding like that. Now, that kind of loss leads to us losing out on our independence and our mobility. We become reliant on other people, unable to take care of ourselves, and before we know it, we're living in a nursing home, not able to do the things we want to do.
And that's why we must do heavy strength training. So one of the most important things that we want to say in this episode is this. The research is crystal clear. The only intervention that consistently reverses muscle loss and helps us regain what we've lost is heavy strength training. I just read this research article and it showed that we really need to use something like at least 85% of our one rep max weight in our strength training for the greatest increases in strength and force development. So not cardio, not yoga, not body weight exercises alone. It has to be heavy full body resistance training.
But here's the tension. The very population that needs this the most, the people in their 50s, their 60s, their 70s, even into their 80s, are also the ones most likely to get hurt by doing it wrong. Now, when you're in your 20s, you can do literally anything, cough, CrossFit, cough, and not injure yourself. But when you get to be 40 plus, you just can't do that anymore. I'm 35 now, and I cannot do the same things that I did when I was 25 without consequences. Like
you did hurt yourself doing CrossFit when you were like 20, when we were in college.
That's a story for another day. I got rhabdo. My arms were sealed shut. Like, literally, I could not unbend my elbows. It was 2 weeks before our wedding.
It was bad.
And I was like, I'm not going to be able to hug Nicole at our wedding. I'm never going to be able to hold my children. But anyways, it ended up being fine. I can do it now. If you're watching this, you can see I can extend my elbows all the way. But anyways, as you age, you can still be, I tell my patients this all the time, you can still be really strong, really healthy, really fit at whatever age they are, 65, 75, but you have to train differently than you did when you were 25. And there's a right way and a wrong way to strength train, especially as you age.
And the best strength training program for aging adults follows a few key rules. If the exercises you're doing don't meet these rules, then you're either wasting your time or worse, you're putting yourself at risk.
So let's get into the rules. We're going to talk about 3 of the most important rules for picking effective strength training exercises for somebody who's over the age of 40. Rule number 1 is they need to use a lot of muscle at the same time. The body works best when it's used as a system. And movements like squats, deadlifts, and overhead presses use multiple muscle groups at the same time. So let's talk about a squat. So a squat uses your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, your adductors, your spinal erectors, your abdominal muscles. In fact, the squat is actually a better exercise for activating your core muscles than a plank, turns out. So it uses all of those muscles. Not only does it use more muscles than, say, a leg extension, it uses them in the way that they're made to move. Compare that with machines like Nicole's going to talk about.
So in machines, you use an isolated muscle group. So say, for example, my favorite machine to refer to, which is also hint my least favorite machine in the whole world, the inner thigh machine or the adductor machine. This is one of Nautilus's, stations that they take you through. It really just misses the point. So you can exhaust that one muscle group, the adductors, say, for example, but that doesn't teach your body to move or function better in real life. All it does is it overly tightens that one muscle group. And in fact, you're not even going to probably get stronger because you're probably going to strain your adductor before you actually see any real strength gain. So with compound barbell lifts, you're building real systemic strength.
But Nicole, how will I get the fat off of my inner thighs? How will I burn my fat off my inner thighs without the adductor squeeze machine?
Heavy squats.
Heavy squats, yes. Okay, so this is a common myth that people have in their brains, that in order to burn fat in my trouble areas, I need to do exercises that only target the muscles in those trouble areas. And that's a complete myth. That's just not how the human body works. We can't spot burn specific areas of our body by working those areas. Doing crunches doesn't burn abdominal fat. Eating a diet that communicates well with your body and moving your body well and often and strength training, that's what burns body fat. And the exercises that are the best at burning fat are the ones that elevate your metabolism the most, which are the ones that use the most muscle. Another reason why we love squats and deadlifts and presses, because they use a lot of muscle all at the same time.
Yep. And they're incredibly efficient. So like this morning, I only had 30 minutes for strength training before I had to drive my kids to camp. And I was able to get in some really heavy, intense lifting all within 30 minutes. So I was able to do squats and push-ups and pull-ups and village curls, and I was able to do it in a very short amount of time. Whereas if I tried to isolate and do all of those muscle groups individually, it would have taken me at least an hour to work all of those same muscle groups, and I wouldn't have gotten the same results.
Nice. So rule number 2, the exercises have got to be functional. Functional is probably one of my least favorite words in the fitness world because it's used to justify all kinds of garbage training. But functional really means that it has carryover and applicability to real life. And if you're like me, you're not training for gym points. You're training for life. And the movements we choose need to carry over into real life. Now, think about squatting. That's standing up from a chair, getting up off the ground without looking like you're older than you actually are. Deadlifting, picking something heavy up off the ground. In fact, a client of mine the other day is a potter, and she has to pick up these heavy bags of clay. And one of her motivations for getting started with strength training was that she was having a hard time doing that. So she's like, I need to be able to do this. And I told her, we have this exercise that's going to be perfect for that. It's called the deadlift. And then overhead presses. I can't tell you how many clients of ours want to be able to put Christmas lights up and struggle to do that because they either don't have the mobility or the strength to keep their arms up overhead for an extended period of time. That is the overhead press. Now, if your training doesn't help you move through life with more confidence and capability, it's missing the mark.
And real life doesn't come with guardrails. It's unpredictable and it's often messy. That's why machines, for all their sleek design, actually make you more fragile. They move for you, they balance for you, and you're not required to control anything.
Now, barbells, on the other hand, force you to own every single inch of the movement. You've got to stabilize, coordinate, and make these constant micro adjustments so that you literally don't fall over. Like if you're doing a barbell back squat, if you lean too far forward, you're going to fall over forward. If you lean too far backwards, you're going to fall over backwards. And to date, we've never had someone just fall over while doing a squat because human beings are actually really good at using their bodies. Like we are hardwired, designed with what we need, woven into our DNA to make those micro adjustments. And if we don't train like that and force our body to do that, we're going to end up losing that ability long term. And that's, if you think about why people fall, it's because they lose the ability to respond quickly to their environment. Falling is one of the leading causes of accidental death of Americans today. And I think it could be largely prevented or at least significantly mitigated by training with barbells. So barbells don't just build strength, they build readiness for life.
Yeah, and that kind of training is giving your body controlled doses of stress with just enough force and adaptation without breaking anything. And that's the magic. You can walk out of the gym not just stronger, but more prepared for your life.
Now, rule number 3 is that the training implement must allow for progressive overload. And so we talked about why barbells are better than machines, and this last one, this really sets barbells apart from kind of everything else. Resistance bands, body weight training, yoga, Pilates, etc. Those are all fine forms of exercise, but they're not training. Training needs to be done in a way that allows you to progressively increase the resistance in a systematic manner. And for most people, they fall into one of two camps when they're exercising. They either go too light for too long, like they always do bodyweight exercises.
Or they just hold their, 2-pound dumbbells and continue to do bicep curls. And
I want to be clear. I don't want to bash. I wrote an email kind of bashing aqua aerobics recently. And a lady emailed back. She's like, "You've never been to an aqua aerobics class then?" And I almost replied,
"That's not true.
That's just not
that
true.
Is not true. In fact,
I used to teach aqua aerobics, and the ladies used to yell at me to mix it up, Matt." So I have taught aqua aerobics, and I love aqua aerobics for just the general movement. I think yoga is great for the general movement, some flexibility. I think Pilates is great for some core strength, but nothing allows for true strength like progressively increasing load over time, and barbells are one of the only things, implements that allow you to do that.
So you can start with something as simple as like a TRX squat, then move to body weight to like a box, and then you can start using a dumbbell or a kettlebell to do goblet squats, and then you move to an empty barbell. And from there, we can add a little bit of weight, honestly, even starting at just 0.5 pound every week, maybe up to 2.5 pounds initially. And it's not magic, it's literally math. And that tiny repeatable increase is what keeps people getting stronger for years without stalling or getting hurt.
One of the things as a physical therapist that I see is that when people do something that's too far outside of what their body's expecting, that's where they get hurt. And I can't tell you how many patients come in, see me with like a bout of back pain, and I ask them, "Well, what did you do?" They're like, "Well, I walked 10 miles at Disneyland and my back started hurting the next day." I'm like, "Do you normally walk 10 miles? Like, "No, I walk about, a half mile a day." It's like that, the delta between what they did and what they normally do is so large that it sets off their alarm system within their bodies. And that's how pain and inflammation works in our bodies. We have this built-in alarm system that goes off when our body senses a perceived threat in our environment. And exercise can be that perceived threat if it's too far outside of the bounds of what your brain and your body is expecting. And that's key. If you take away nothing else from this podcast, understand that the increases you make in barbell training or any sort of exercise training really should be steady and progressive. I also see people that go to pick up running and they go from 0 to running 5 miles. It's like, that's way too much too soon. You should start with like a 1/4 mile and then maybe 1/3 of a mile and then a 1/2 mile and just steadily up the volume over time. So progressive overload barbell training, it really respects biology and physics. You do too much too soon, you're going to break. You do not enough, nothing's going to change. But just enough consistently, you're going to get stronger week after week, year after year. And that's how real strength is built.
And next, we want to talk about how our group strength training program works and why it works for our 500 clients here at Village.
Yeah, so we've been teaching people how to barbell strength train for almost a decade. We've had literally thousands of clients in our programs over the years. Almost all of them are over the age of 40. And we've seen what works, what doesn't work. And so if you're somebody out there that's thinking, how do I integrate barbell strength training into my life? We're going to talk to you about what we've done with, like I said, thousands of people. We have about 500 people in our programs right now. We're going to talk to you about the exact programming that we use for our clients today. And Nicole is actually very involved in our programming, so she can speak to kind of what we do, how our coaches coach, etc.
Yeah. So we always hit on one of our, what we call our big three. And that is done every single time that someone comes in the gym. So they always do a squat, a deadlift, and an overhead press every single week. Now that's assuming that they come to their 3 sessions per week, which we recommend is the minimum that people should do. Based on people's schedules, sometimes people only make it in twice, but they really don't get the same amount of strength gains, and they don't see the same amount of progress as when they're consistently in the gym 3 times a week. And so that means if you're coming, in 1 week, you should be doing the squat once, the deadlift once, and the overhead press once. And this isn't just random for elite athletes or it's not just like, oh, let's try this. It's very intentional, like Matt said, in how we design it and how we rotate it so that people have ample time to recover in between the big lifts. And it's really designed for everyday adults. So most people in our program are 40 plus, not all of them. There's a lot of people that are younger as well. But if you're new to lifting, we'll often start you with, just like Matt said before, like a body weight squat to a box. We'll move you to a 15-pound training bar so that you can really learn the movement patterns so that you don't get injured. Once you clearly know how to do the movement and you're hitting our form criteria, then we start to slowly, progressively overload you like Matt talked about. And that progression is what's really exciting and what really builds strength.
Now, we didn't talk about this before the episode, but what's our thinking currently on how we pair the other 9 movements with the big 3? So we have 12 movements in our program called our movement standards. The big 3, the squat, the deadlift, the press, and then 9 others. How do we try to match those up with the big 3 these days?
Yeah, so each quarter at the end of our 12 weeks, we do what's called our benchmark week, which is really just an exciting time where people get to showcase their strength and how much strength they've built over the 12 weeks. And what we do each benchmark week is we only test the big 3 as well as 2 of our other movements. And then we always test ski erg because that's really our base for people's aerobic capacity. And so we like to see how that improves in addition to their strength and mobility. So our other 9 movements, one of which is ski erg, or we really could say the 8 movements, they rotate every quarter. So we do 2 of them. So last quarter we did push-up and village curl. And so last quarter's focus was on doing a lot more push-ups. So the focus really rotates each quarter. And in order to see real strength, like we were talking about, you really have to do things consistently. And push-ups, as well as pull-ups and some of our other movements, in order to see true progress, you really probably should be doing it 3 times a week. However, twice a week was what we decided on so that people didn't see overuse injuries. But again, it really we base our workouts for the quarter off the big 3, off ski erg, and then we focus on the 2 that we're going to be testing and make sure that people do those more often. And that rotation just allows our body to experience a different stimulus each quarter so that it's not always the same thing. So if we do a lot of push-ups, like we did last quarter, we're not doing as many push-ups this quarter. Not that we're not going to do them, but we're just going to give those joints a little bit of a break and do other things like this. And this quarter, we're emphasizing lower body, and we're doing village lunge and single leg top down to really work on people's leg and posterior leg strength.
Now, do we try to match up like a push-up with an overhead press, or do we intentionally put that on a different day than overhead press? What have we found works and doesn't work?
Yeah, we often put, upper body, our what we call our other standards outside of our big 3 on days where they're not doing overhead press. So push-up was always done on our squat and our deadlift days. And then overhead press days, the other movements that we do usually is a lower body. So it's usually like village lunge or single leg top down or village curl that really complements that. So there's not too much fatigue in one workout to where people won't see improvements in those smaller movements.
So what the research shows and what we found is that older people, the muscle protein synthesis, which is the process that gets initiated when you actually lift weights, it doesn't stay on for as long. So if you're 20 something, you lift weights, your muscle protein synthesis could stay on for like 72 hours. When you're 60 something or 70 something, it probably is staying on for 24 hours or less. And so you need a similar stimulus for those muscles sooner rather than later. Like if you just train pressing once a week, you're going to miss out on a lot of the muscle protein synthesis you could be getting in your pressing muscles. So for that reason, we put push-ups on a different day than overhead presses. And also, we find that for our clientele, they do better when they're not doing a very similar movement on the same day. Like a press uses many of the same muscles as a push-up. If you're using your deltoids, you're using your triceps in a press, you're using your deltoids, you're using your triceps in a push-up. So they're very, very similar in terms of exercise. Now, if I'm working with a client one-on-one, I may have them do a slightly different program than in our small group training workouts. So, for example, if you're brand new to strength training, you really want to get strong, I would suggest that you do deadlifts, squats, and presses probably every workout initially. Because
maybe different variations of them.
Yeah, sure. Maybe some different variations of them, but slowly and steadily increase the weight. I did a training program last year, at the last quarter of last year, where I followed the starting strength, just linear progression, basic program. And I did squats, 3 sets of 5, overhead press, 3 sets of 5, deadlifts, 3 sets of 5. And the next workout was squats, 3 sets of 5, bench press, 3 sets of 5, deadlifts, 3 sets of 5. And I followed that for about 6 weeks. And then I started to plateau on my lifts, and I started to mix it up from there. So that's where somebody would probably shift into a program like ours, where you're doing the big lifts 1 day per week. And then if you get to be very experienced, very advanced in your training, you may need even more recovery between the big lifts. So if you're somebody that's, deadlifting a weight that's very heavy relative to you, you may need 2 weeks between deadlift sessions to really recover fully. Because it's not just your muscles that are adapting, it's your ligaments, your tendons, your bones, these tissues that probably take a little bit longer than just the muscles.
Yeah, so I would say that, overall, what we do at Village is like we meet people where they're at. We start them at a safe and effective level. And then we make sure that they're progressively overloading their bodies so that each week they're getting stronger and they're building true strength. And again, we emphasize the big 3 because we think that it has the most bang for your buck. And so that's what our program is oriented around, is the heavy barbell lift. And our coaches are really great at making sure that people are warming up in a safe and effective manner. So we have up to 8 people in every single session. And the coach goes around during the warm up for the big lift, and every single person's warm up progression is programmed, and then they decide on their target weight, which is that weight that should be between really 80 to 90% of their 1 rep max. And their target sets are done. They do 3 target sets where they do 3 reps for deadlifts and then 5 reps for overhead press and squats. And the coach is watching 2 people at a time, making sure that they're doing it safely and effectively. And if they need to make any changes in their form, that's corrected so that people don't get injured. And then we have, like Matt said, we have a way to progress them in that progressive overload, and we write in what they should do for their next workout so that everything is programmed week by week, and we're customizing things for people as needed, but then we're also able to do it in community, and it's been incredibly effective.
Yeah. So, excuse me. So if there's one thing we want you to take away from today's episode, it's this. Aging does not have to mean decline. But if you want to stay strong, capable, and independent, you have got to be intentional. And for us, and for thousands of clients that we've worked with, it starts with the barbell. And strength training, it's not about ego. It definitely should not be about ego. It's about ability. It's about living without fear, walking without pain, and doing the things you love with the people you love for as absolutely long as possible.
So whether you're 40 or you're 70, whether you've never lifted before or you're just getting back into it after a break, this is your invitation. It's not too late, you're not too old, and you should start strength training today.
Yeah, start simple. Do the big 3, squat, deadlift, press. I actually like the press better than the bench press because it's standing, and I think people sit too much. That's why we press in our program and not bench press. Start with a big 3. Start with a weight that's lighter than you think you should start with, and then progress very, very slowly. We typically will. Did you talk about progression? How much weight to add for each of the lifts?
Oh, I would say for squat, each week you're probably going to add, starting off, about 5 pounds for both squat and deadlift. Deadlift might be more like
5 to 10.
5 to 10 pounds on deadlift, depending on where you're starting. And then overhead press really would be probably more the 1 to 5 pound range. And you're going to plateau a little bit more quickly in overhead press than you will in squat and deadlift. And I think the biggest thing is that people will say early on, like, oh, this is too light, especially men. Men like to, they like to remind me about how much they used to bench press when they were in high school.
That's where you know you're in trouble when they start reminding you about how much they benched.
When they were in high school. Yeah. And it shouldn't feel overly taxing on your body until you really have nailed down the form. And quite frankly, like, even people that had experience lifting, like, it's always helpful to have a coach. Like, I go to small group sessions and I let the coaches and the physical therapists coach me, and I ask them to give me feedback on my form because I know I'm missing something. I can't see myself moving. They can, and they can help coach me on things like, recently one of our coaches was like, oh, your left ankle is collapsing. You need to activate the arches in your foot more on your left foot so that your knee doesn't cave in and you're more balanced in your heavy squat. And so there's so many things that can be done when someone else watches you and when you have a coach. And so if you don't have a coach, and especially if you've never done strength training, like, I think it's absolutely necessary so that you don't get injured. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. Cool. If you want to go deeper and you follow us online, we have a ton of great resources on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel. It's at Village Fitness Physical Therapy. It's Village Fitness and Physical Therapy. It's literally our logo that's on the cover image. And we have videos on how to squat, how to deadlift, how to press. We have videos on progression and videos on how to troubleshoot if you have pain, all kinds of great stuff on there. And then if you are local to, Glendora, San Marino, Southern California, go to our website, villagefpt, as in fitnessphysical.com, and fill out a form, connect with somebody on our team, and see if our program is right for you.
Right. Until next time, keep showing up, keep getting stronger, start strength training, and remember, strength is for life.
We'll see you soon. Like and subscribe the pod as well, and leave us a review. We want to know how we're doing, so leave us a review on the podcast, and we will give you a shout out.